If you don't know, now you know.
Hello and welcome back to If You Don't Know, Now You Know. My name's Mr. Hecker. Thanks for joining us here today. The next guest that we have on the show is Blake. Blake is one of the co-founders of Momentum, a men's empowerment group movement. It's really special. Go check it out. I'll put it down in the description as well. But other than that, let's get into it. Blake's just touching base on the three things that he's grateful for today.
Very much aligned with how I feel about what's kind of actually happening in the world. The second thing would be the connections that I'm making and expanding. People like yourself. I did another podcast yesterday, and we've got guests constantly on our Instagram, which I'm just loving how aligned we are. And the third is good health, which at the moment my shoulder's a bit injured, and it's the one thing that really kind of rattles me a bit. So I'm grateful for how good my health normally is, and I'm kind of reinforcing it, while I've got a bit of an injury at the moment as well.
Yeah, brother. Things have to be pretty good if you're in Byron at the moment. How'd you get there? I'm just curious. Did you jump the border or did you swim over?
I got a piggyback actually from my mate from South Australia. So he, mate, we moved like, I think it's 7 weeks ago now. We're in South Australia for a bit. We're actually planning on going to Melbourne and teaming up with our third business partner in Melbourne. And obviously shit hit the fan and we chose otherwise. And, for me, there's always been two spots in Australia that really jump out at me. One being Newcastle, so just up from Sydney, and the other being Byron Bay. So, mate, the fact that I'm here is unreal.
Yeah, I will say I'm a little bit jealous. Byron Bay is one of those places I love to go to, and it's only about 40 to 50 minutes from myself. And it's like one of those things on the weekend, I just jump in the car in the morning, shoot down there, go get a coffee, have some breakfast. And I'm like, that's my little reset. And as you said, the people down there are quite relaxed and chilled. It's just a really good environment. It just things feel a little bit slower there, a little bit settled. I can go down there, everyone's a morning saying hello. So how's that transition? How's that life been going for you down there?
Well, mate, it's good. I think, the thing, and myself and my business partner got warned of it before we came here, is you can go down one of two paths. Well, there's probably a few paths. You can go down, the path of very much getting caught in the Byron Bay lifestyle of work not really being a priority and that kind of real hustle mode not being a thing and just cruise. Or because it is a really grounding space, you can actually get really, dialed in and focused on the work that you're doing and really have an impact. So for me, when I'm on with work and really charging through that at the moment. And the last four or 5 weeks have probably been the best 4 or 5 weeks in a number of years. And then when I'm off, I'm off. So it's, the slower lifestyle, so to speak, is good for my time to tap out. But, when I'm on, I'm on. So I get to choose the pace of my lifestyle, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. And from that, obviously, you've got the movement.
Yep. Yep.
Can you explain that to the listeners and watchers out there? What is that and how that started? Just so give everyone a bit of a brief so I can direct them towards you as well in that sector.
Yeah, well, it's I've been big on personal development for 16 or 17 years now, and it's been a pretty tough path. 1, through lack of mentors, 2, lack of direction, and 3, lack of kind of community and connection in that. And, one of the things that I love that, you're doing with the boys as well is for the majority of our kind of guys who love a beer, love the footy, whatever it might be, there's not an option that feels, 1, appealing and 2, accessible. Often at this stage, although it's kind of shifting pretty quickly, there's still a cringy feel about men's work, and that's moving quite quickly, which is cool. And the second thing is a lot of the stuff is quite advanced. So for blokes looking to dip his toe in for the first time and start to kind of transition and start to open to this space, and he has to go straight into this advanced style, healing, clearing, embodiment, then it can be quite full on. So we wanted to create something that was a bit more appealing. You could still have a beer and a schnitzel and come to a meetup, or you could jump online, learn a few things about how to, connect and communicate better with your partner or whatever it might be, and just help them dip their toe in. And ideally take them on a ride, an adventure, but have that entry point available for them so that they can get started.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll back that up saying that it's like there's so much men's work out there that's needed, and I feel like it's fastly growing as well. But it's not so inviting to everyone. As I know that when we got into this space and we started working, it's not for everyone, and a lot of men do struggle to show up. And we've had many men that have showed up to our events, and like they're like, "Oh, I just couldn't get out of the car." They're like, "Sorry, man, I bailed." And they come back another time, like a month later, and they're like, "I was here last month in the car park waiting. I just didn't get out." And it's yeah, and I feel like we're in a really good shift and move at this current stage where things are at the moment. That's why I was so excited to get you on here and speak, because I've been following your journey and watching. I'm like, "Done," and this is what it's about. It's about creating those spaces for men to go, because when I was coming up and I was like, there was none. And so look, I'm not even 30 yet, and I'm like, I can't imagine what it was like for guys that are before me. I'm like, there was nothing. There was nothing for me when I was in those, or not that I've seen anyway. It was just not. There's nothing present. I couldn't ask anyone for some honest opinions. It was usually, oh, here you go, let's just go out and go out and get fucked up all weekend, and that was it. Like that was the only advice I ever really got. And just to see, like, I guess that this transition at the moment happening in men's work is it's really good, and just the future looks a lot better, especially for our younger generation as well. And yeah, I just want to just give you a big kudos and say thanks for it, because I know it's not easy to get out there and put yourself out there in this space, and there's always controversy. There's things, it's not so easy, and yeah, and I like the way you put everything out there. It's really good, man. And just say big thanks and much love and respect. Hey,
Mate, appreciate that. It's and saying you guys, you do it so well, is we have to lead by example. Do you know what I mean? You can't preach it and not lead by example. So, posts that I put out there that are, sometimes a bit edgy, often quite vulnerable, like it just has to be done. No one's going to respect me in this. Well, most people wouldn't respect me in this space if I wasn't, practicing what I preach. And, I think what we've done, what we've seen from a society point of view, is a really nice awakening of mental health. For the last 5 years, probably take it back 5 years ago, and it was still not spoken of. And now it's spoken of, and you got your Are You OK days, Movember, things like that have really set a nice platform. But now we've got to take it to another level. We need communities and platforms that support this awakening, because, while Are You OK Day for the day is really important, and there is a trickle effect, we need structures and support to be able to capture these men and support them through, their transition or through the stuff that they're going through, whatever it may be. So, the more the merrier in terms of, men's groups or however they want to be labeled, coming up and having a place in the space.
Yeah, and sweet. And I guess what our our aim here today as well is for the listeners is to have a conversation about these topics as well. So for the listeners out there today, this is not going to be like an interview type of structure. It's also, we're going to be talking topics around these, men's mental health as well. And I want to dive straight in there and ask you, what are some common areas I feel like that men are struggling with that you seem to come across in your groups and in your circles? Like, what is anything sticking out to you that like major issues?
Oh, mate, the list is long, to be honest. But I think, on a very simple level, is blokes don't have people around them that they can go to that next level, and I've had moments where I've struggled really hard, and the struggle is so much worse when you don't feel like you've got that connection or community around you. Like, you can get through anything if you've got really good, strong connections and community, I reckon. And, I've gone through a couple of, rough patches, some where I haven't had that sense of connection, community, and really strong people that I could lean on. And then other occasions where I have, and the difference is just kind of worlds apart. So you've got that. I think for a lot of blokes, they're struggling to balance everything. We often feel like we need to be perfect at everything, and if we're letting ourselves down in a couple of areas, then that really beats us up. knowing how to show up is a really big challenge for a lot of people, like as if they need to show up a certain way. You know, again, I think, you know, that's a world problem. I feel like, you know, based on my experience anyway, females probably feel that pull even harder, but they're more vocal about it, whereas blokes just, you know, feel it. You know, we spent 3 months doing research. They feel it, but they don't talk about it. And then, you know, for a lot of blokes, there's a lot of ego and a lack of awareness. It really makes stepping into this space hard, or making change hard, because they can't see, you know, you can't own what you can't see. So for a lot of blokes, they can't see the stuff that's, you know, ruining their relationships, that's having an impact on their addictions, that's, you know, causing chaos in their world. So a little bit of a clusterfuck, but it's starting to kind of make sense, you know, the recurring themes for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I was speaking on the community side of things as well. It's like I get questions now compared to like when I, like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, people ask me like, oh, how are you doing what you're doing right now? Like you seem to be moving quite quickly, and it all comes down to the people I'm surrounded by now. I can make the jump anytime I want, because I know I'm held. I know I'm held in all the right ways that I need to be. I'm like, I always say to my bros, they're like, ask me, you know, oh, should I do this? Should I do that? And I'm like, aim for the bushes, brother. I'm like, make the jump. I got you. It's all good. Aim for the bushes. If you don't land right, we're gonna be here. And that is so important, and not a lot of men really fully understand that. And it's it takes a lot of battles with the ego as well, about dropping egos, and it's come together. Okay, look, we've got a group of men here. We don't have to have this stigma around we have to do everything alone. We have to, it's all me, it's all on me, all the weight is on my shoulders. It's when you start to open up to your environment and what's around you and start letting that come in. That's so important. And so many men are playing the lone wolf. That was myself. And now I've got a community around me that supports me and holds me in all the ways that I need to be. And like you're saying, like I get to show up as I am. I don't have to put on the mask. I don't have to try to be anyone else. I can be here in my good days, my shit days, in my medium days, however it is. And for men out there listening, especially, it's really important for you to find that and surround yourself with that. And that's why this men's work's so important. It's so important to have those communities.
Well, mate, you talk about being held. It's interesting because, you know, for so long there's been this stigma, exactly as you said, around, oh, mate, I don't need to be held. I'm a man. But like, there's nothing better than feeling like you really, you know, like blokes, like, although feeling safe comes from within, and that's, you know, that's something that we need to step into, many of us, to really feel kind of safe and stable as the grounded masculine, which, you know, depending on your childhood and your past, can have its challenges for many people. But there's nothing like feeling, you know, like your mates have got your back, and not when, you know, for so many, because we, you know, on a deep DNA level, we were all competitors back, you know, hundreds of years ago, competitors for women, for food, whatever it might have been. But in a level, you know, in a way that no matter what's going on for each person, they've got your back. Not just when they're up and you're kind of a little bit down, or not vice versa, but just the whole way. And that kind of unconditional support and love. And I was talking about this, you know, on an interview last night. Like, for so many blokes, there's this sense of that bloke's, you know, is competition. And I said the same thing last night. Like, if I sense with another bloke there's an element of, you know, envy, jealousy, ego, competition, or comparison, I'm going to find it really hard to let my guard down, because there's an element within them, if they're, and I kind of like to see your struggle, because that helps me feel better or feel superior, whatever it is. So it's really important just to drop all that like aside. Like, we're all one, really, at the end of the day. And it's interesting, the layers and the masks and all the bullshit that we've built, you know, all the conditioning that prevents us from being anything other.
Yeah. And it's funny we just spoke about that, because it's a topic I was talking about this morning. And it's just like for me, one thing I've learned lately is everyone's trying to look like a 10. This is like a quote I've got. Everyone's trying to look like a 10 rather than feel like a 10.
Yeah.
And it's so apparent, especially in the men's world at the moment. You know, things have changed now. The environment's very different to, 100 years ago, 50 years ago. And it's kind of, it's competitive in a way. Like males have made like lifestyle so competitive at the moment. And for me, I always explain to me, I'm like, there is no competition. The only competition I have is that guy right there. He's my only competition. I'm not worried about you. I'm not worried about trying to compete with you. I'm like, the only competition I'll ever face off and the hardest competition I'll ever square off with is myself. I'm always battling with myself. And that's a tough battle to win at times. And I want to revert back a little bit. You're talking about some of the struggles that you had to face before. What were they?
Well, mate, they've been the whole way through, and when you're in the struggle, it's hard to see the benefit of it. But as you come out the other side, it's often a lot easier. I've from the earliest of years, I have felt the struggle. In terms of my parents breaking up, a very kind of abusive household, growing up both mentally and emotionally, and that really takes its toll. And I'm really interested in conscious parenting and the importance of a safe, healthy home environment for kids to be brought up into, and the impact that has long term. But the last 12 months have been phenomenal. But previous to that, I went through a 15-month stretch where it's just fucking hit after hit, and I haven't spoken about it much, although I'm very open about it now. But coming on to 3 years ago, I actually filed for bankruptcy, and the business was going well. And I built myself a cool little thing. But what had actually got in the way, now that I've had plenty of time to unpack it, is a shit ton of ego, a whole bunch of limiting beliefs, and just a lot of mess. And I was already on the process of working through my stuff when that happened, but it was too late to kind of reverse that. But it's been a really interesting, I think 6 months prior to that happening, I studied NLP, and I was like, fuck, I can see like how I've ended up where I ended up, in terms of really understanding the mind. And then it was just hit after hit. I'd closed the doors with business. I didn't have to, because I just reverted from a company back to a sole trade. I didn't have to close the doors, but the passion within me in the health and fitness space had died, and naturally kind of moved to where I am now. And then moved to Melbourne, got fired from 3 jobs, which, is very humbling. Fired from 3 jobs in the space of like 8 months, I reckon. Lost the person who I thought I was going to marry. My car blew up, and I was in, fights with Jeep for 6 months, ended up in hospital. Like, it was just a series of 8 or 9 things in a 15-month stretch. And individually on their own, they're not the end of the world. But when they come together, it's really challenging. I think the hardest thing in all of that for me, and, I think for many other blokes, because we're so drawn to that mission, passion, purpose, is I didn't know where I was going. So, I'm at rock bottom, and the future looks so bleak. Like, anytime I slightly had my mind drift off and entertain the idea of like, what does the future look like? I just had to bring it back, because it was so dark. I couldn't see a thing. It literally, like I say, it was so dark, but it literally was like, I remember visualizing it was dark. Like, I couldn't see what it looked like. And, even in the relationship, like, great human is everything's all right. I think as a bloke, if you are really aligned with your passion, purpose, and mission, like, if the shit hits the fan, you'll be all right, because deep in our DNA level, our primary driver for the masculine is a mission, passion, or purpose. So if you've got that, heaven forbid, no relationships break down or you don't lose partners, but you'll probably, you should be okay if you're really anchored into that kind of aligned passion and purpose. So the fact that I didn't have that just exacerbated every other little element that wasn't working for me at the time.
Yeah. And I always say a life without direction will leave you to the wrong section.
Yeah.
It's, as males, it's important to have direction. And keep it simple as well. I want to know, like, obviously you would have got so many lessons out of that. And life is like, when you're sitting in those moments and you talk about it being dark, If you were to go through that now, you would probably be sitting there going, okay, I'm getting some lessons right now. Looking back at that time, what were some of the key lessons I feel like you got out of those times? Like what have you brought out of that into today's life? Because this is a topic right now where there could be a lot of there's a lot of males out there right now that own small businesses, that are in industries that are potentially being limited or being shut down or having to force and close down. And like your car having problems, there's going to be a roll-on effect here of other items that come with shutting down a business or being able to having to go through that phase. What were some lessons or some tips?
Well, I think, when I look at it, I think what essentially got me through was I had done a lot of work already, so to be able to run the course of that 15 months, knowing the tools that I've got really helped me. And for me, it was a number of things, like a couple of quotes that probably played over my head on a daily basis of like, why is this happening for you, not to you, is a really big one. And often in the moment, you can't see it. You're like, fuck, mate, I can't see how this could possibly work for me. But, I look in hindsight now, the relationship, the car, everything worked for me. And then life will throw you people and circumstances to show you where you're not free is another one that played over in my mind. So I was like, okay, so I'm being thrown this, where aren't I free? Well, I had an attachment to an identity, with the health and fitness, dropped that. Had an attachment to some material stuff around car and stuff, dropped that. And I remember saying to Janelle, one of our business partners, as long as I've got my physical and mental health, like, fuck, I felt like everything was getting stripped away from me at that time. I was like, as long as I've got my physical and mental health, you can take anything. And then fucking the next week I end up in hospital with what they thought was, meningococcal. And I was like, fuck, so I can't even rely on my physical health. But, those two things are really important. But, the big piece as well is coming back to what can I do today just to get through? The future was so dark and I couldn't see it clearly. But I was like, okay, when I wake up in the morning, what can I do that isn't relying on any external forces? And I was like, okay, I can exercise on a daily basis. I can eat well on a daily basis. I can hydrate. I can sleep. There was an element of getting in nature. So whether it was getting out and getting some vitamin D or getting in nature, an element of growth. So reading, personal development, which is my number one value. And if I can connect with someone, so there's 7 things that didn't require much, but if I hit those 7 little daily things, then that helped me massively. So I think, what's really important, and it's part of what I do at the start of coaching, is unpacking you. Like, what are your values? What makes you tick? And while it sounds for some people a really obvious thing, there's actually a lot of people that are like, oh, fuck, I don't know. Like, I don't know what my value hierarchy looks like. I don't know what my love languages are. I don't know what my, human needs hierarchy is. I don't know these things. And when you kind of start to formulate your recipe, through some of these exercises and through self-awareness and introspection, then you'll always be all right because you know what you come back to. And, I feel super fortunate at the moment with COVID, and, a part of me actually feels guilty that the last 6 months has been as good as any period of my life because so much work has been done. I know people, the government, whatever's kind of going on, I won't go down my conspiracy theory route, but whatever's going on can be stripped away from me and I'll be all right. Do you know what I mean? So, that real strong self-awareness piece. And I can't help but think, probably not now while we're in the funk, but for a lot of guys and girls, there will be a lot of good to come from this in terms of really waking people up, when the dust does settle, whenever that might be.
Yeah, I feel like at the moment things are still up in the air, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next 6 to 8 months and see what happens there and folds out. And like you said, like as long as you've got those core values, you're understanding what you need and what you don't need and where things sit within yourself, it's pretty hard to be put in that scarcity mode, as I guess a lot of people call it. And you spoke on the whole conspiracy thing. I'm like, yeah, let's not go down that road today because I'll get stuck here as well. We'll be looking at ourselves going, That's been 2 hours, and we've been talking about it. Oh,
Yeah, mate, feel for sure.
but it is a little interesting. We will touch on it just a tad, and it's kind of unfortunate at the moment, and a lot of men and a lot of women out there have been, I guess, put into spaces that they've been very limited at the moment. What's some advice, I feel like, for someone that's been put into some kind of restriction at the moment, shut down? What are you feeling?
Mate, I feel like it's a sense of connection and community, whatever that looks like for you. And, you know, so many unfortunate people in Victoria who can't get that sense of community, you know, in terms of the physical contact, if they're locked up in their homes or whatever it might be. But what can you do to really have that touch point? And, you know, I think similar to you and what you boys are doing is it's a really good time to reassess things, you know, and without kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, it's a case of like, what of your relationships are really serving you? Like, when do you really feel fucking connected with someone? What does it require from you or from them to feel that level of connection? And, you know, as I kind of move forward, my relationships are probably, well, I won't say my relationships are less, but my inner circle is less. So while I'm developing a lot of really good relationships, my inner circle just gets tighter and tighter. And those are the people that, you know, I can talk to at any stage about anything. You know, they're the people that are probably like-minded, and those are the people that I feel like connected to. And you know good connection because you get off the phone or you get off the podcast or whatever, and you're like, fuck, I'm up and about. And that can keep you going for the day. Do you know what I mean? Like, even this chat with you, I'll be chipper for the rest of the day. I'll be up and about knowing that we've talked about some, you know, real shit and some stuff that is of interest to both people.
Yeah, and I always say it too. I call them my high vibe homies. I'm like, I got to have my high vibe homies because they're really important, especially when things are down, it's good, it's bad. Like, I ring them up. I'm like, I need my high vibe homies because I know after I get off the phone to them, I call or I go see them. I'm like, I'm going to be buzzing. I'm like, thanks. Cheers, brother. Got what I needed. It's important to have that community in that sense. So spoken about the past, I want to speak about the future. What are you forecasting for your future? Where would you like to see things go?
Well, mate, there's two really strong themes for me. And, you know, I was saying this yesterday as well. Like, I feel super lucky that for 15 years, I loved what I did when it came to health and fitness. You know, for someone to find their passion at 18, I don't know how people find their passion at 18. You know, it's such a young age. But I felt super fortunate that at 18, I worked it out, and it, you know, it rode me through till about, you know, 33. So it was, 15 years. And then, you know, 18 months in the dark of trying to work out, you know, what I was really drawn to and, you know, where I was at and where I wanted to go. And then, you know, to now be in a position where I've got essentially two businesses, both of which I absolutely love. Momentum being the men's stuff and creating those connections, communities, and helping blokes be better, you know, by challenging and kind of championing them. And then that tribe piece, which we just spoke of. And I'm kind of putting together the logistics at the moment, you know, which is a side project for my kind of coaching business around what are the people that I, you know, sometimes in business we forget, like, what do we want? You know, so for me, I'm like, okay, if I'm going to create a tribe next year, which is my big thing, like, what do I want? You know, so ideally they talk about, there's a thing called the Dunbar method or theory, which essentially says from a tribe point of view, you can't have real strong connections with more than 150 people. So I look at it from a business point of view and go, okay, if I've got 150 people in this tribe and we're going together for ideally 12 months, what does it look like? Well, it looks like people that challenge the status quo. It looks like, you know, the explorer, the adventurer who doesn't really love just the kind of 9 to 5 and the daily grind. It looks like people that are a bit edgy, a little bit left, who are interested in, you know, sexuality or, you know, psychedelics, who are interested in growing, expanding, self-development. So, you know, all the stuff that kind of I'm interested in. And you know, I look at it and can really clearly see that we're in trouble with the loneliness. Like, it's our next epidemic. So if I can have 150 like-minded people feeling connected, like they're moving forward, you know, and they've got that sense of community, that's the high vibe that they'll be after and that I'm after. So I'm really ironing out what that message to that tribe looks like. And then, naturally when you put out your message, you draw in people who resonate with it. So yeah, I'm pumped for that.
Yeah, I love it. And like we say, it's like for us, it's like community, connection, and culture.
Yep.
Like create the community and then you create the connection, and those two create the culture. And like that's why you're bringing in all those people, because you want to create a new culture around that, and that's what you get to create that, and that's what you want, and that's the most important thing, and it's beautiful, bro. So I can't wait to see that happen. And any support you need from us, you know where to reach us, brother. I'll be happy to give you all the support and courage there that you need to help you make that happen as well. That's why I always I ask people what their future looks like, because I'm like, oh, you know what, I might know someone that can help you get that. And I look forward to having another chat in the future about this as well, and how that goes. Because yeah, you're right about the loneliness thing as well. I feel like that's the next like everyone's been segregated at the moment, and it's a lot of places have just got that real like even at shopping centers and stuff, like everything's like separated. It's like, I don't like that whole separation thing.
Mate, it's horrible. And I guess part of this came to me, this idea, because of the conversations and even the clients that I've got. There's a lot of people who have got friends and really good friends, but they're just on a different page. I've got a number of good girlfriends and a number of good guy mates who are like, yeah, I love my mates, but they're not into personal development. Or I love my mates, but I can't talk to them about relationships. Or I love my mates, but I can't talk to them about some of the edgier kind of more taboo stuff. So, loneliness essentially comes from being on a different page to people. Like you can be around, 101 people, but if you're not vibing on the same page, nothing wrong with them. You're just on a different page. So, people I think in the past have been caught up with loneliness being about, being a numbers game, but it's not. It's a connection and a like-minded game.
It's yeah, it's a strange little game that people are trying to play. Hey, it's such a weird thing, and I've been trying to wrap my head around that as well. I get a lot of people come to me and they're like, oh, I've got all these friends and, I can't, like you said, like can't speak about this, can't speak about that. I'm like, look, you have to do is just have those honest conversations, and just be like, okay, cool. I'm not better than you. I'm not above you or below you, but you're just not for me. That's okay. Like you're not always going to, you may not always stay in the same tribe, as I like to say. You can shift and change around, and as we grow through life. We don't go through life, we grow through life. And it's important that like sometimes you outgrow circles. That's okay. It's not like you jump into the next circle and you just cut them off and you never see them and they're on a different world. You just grow through your circles. And that little piece there is so important, I feel. People hold a lot of guilt and shame around shifting circles. And it's something I had to learn this as well, because I never really belonged to a circle at all. And it's something I found myself as a male trying to fit in anywhere, trying to fit in everywhere. And eventually I was like, look, I probably don't fit into any of that. I'm a bit weird. I'm a bit weird. And I had to be okay with that. But once I really sat with myself, I was like, look, I'm a little bit different. I accepted that and I started being my true honest self. Those people found me. Those people found me. When I stopped being other people, trying to be someone else, I'm like, oh, I was like, that's all I had to do. I just had to be my most truest self. I was like, tick, there's that lesson. It took me years.
Mate, that's exactly the same story. That's exactly how it came to me. Like I've never felt like I fit the system. I've never felt like I fit the status quo. I've never felt like I fit the 9 to 5. And I think, through the early part of my 20s, and probably pushing towards the late part of my 20s, I saw that as, fuck, there must be something wrong with me. Like, why do I not just, why am I not happy with just the meat and 3 veg? Like, I want the spicy shit. And then, as I've become more accustomed to it and comfortable with it, then it's like, fuck, I can see the bit. Like, I have the most utmost respect for the people that follow the status quo. And if they're fully fulfilled and fully happy, awesome. Like, all the best to you. But I look at that and a part of me feels a bit dead inside. Do you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't handle the thought of like the Groundhog Day, saving your life savings to go on a holiday once or twice a year, even just, meat and 3 veg kind of sex life. Like, none of that stuff interests me, like, oh, let's have sex once a month or let's have sex on your birthday. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I'm not up for it. So, and the more, that, to be honest, part of why I put this stuff out on social is because I actually want to draw in people of like-minded. So, some of the stuff I say and post is a bit controversial. I'm like, fuck it. Like, if you're mainstream, that's cool. My message may resonate. Some of my messages may resonate, but, a part of that's actually coming from a selfish place of like, I want to put out what I stand for in order to potentially, bring in people closer who might be part of my inner circle or who might resonate with my message and essentially become part of my tribe, over time as well.
Yeah, brother, you got to call that shit in. And I was just laughing when I was listening. I was like, that was me too. And it's even like I had relationships and I've had partners and I'm like explaining to them like, look, a normal life's not for me, darling. Like, and they would never get it. And I was like, they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm not, you want to be with me? We're not going to live a normal lifestyle. Like, they want to do the normal relationship that looks so good on Instagram. I was like, fuck, that's not for me. I can't do that shit.
No.
And it was just, yeah, it created so many divides. And it was like, and I just had to come with myself. And I was like, not for me. Not for me. You want to live a normal lifestyle. I'm like, normal lifestyle is not for me. And it's like you said, like you start calling that in, you start bringing that in. And then that's when you find your place. You really start to find out who you are and where you can function at a really, and the weight drops off your shoulders, I feel.
Mate, that's a big thing. That is the big piece. Once you become comfortable with it, like, fuck, everything changes.
Oh, it's like freedom to move. Like, you can do. I always say, like, the best thing you can be in this world is yourself.
Yep.
That's it. I'm like, don't fucking overcomplicate it. Keep it stupid, simple, and do it. That's it.
Yep.
Like, because eventually you're trying to act like someone else, you're trying to be like someone else. That will wear your ass down. You're going to have to take that mask off at some stage. It's a funny thing I always see in relationships. Like, I have a lot of men pass through circles and they get a new girlfriend. And I guess they're trying to maintain a level of like this level of like impressiveness. And I'm like, you better take that shit off right now, brother. I said, I know you can't keep that pace up. You can't keep that pace up. And eventually when the honeymoon, like what they say, the honeymoon period is just more so like when they have to take off the mask after that period ends. There's the person. I'm like, you might as well be yourself now, or it's just going to happen in like 2 months, 3 months, depending on how long you can stick in there. And I learned that lesson myself. And that leads into my next question: relationships. How's that been for you? What lessons have you learned around that in your lifetime?
Mate, massive. Like I've mate, the girls, and I'm good friends with a lot of them, and a couple have chosen to kind of part ways. But mate, when you can see the juice in relationships in terms of your own evolution that can kind of come in it changes everything. A more recent one was probably the most insightful period of time that I've had, because you can go and do all the work. And this is really interesting. Off that heartbreak that happened a couple of years ago, I was I've been drawn to relationships for a while, but I was really drawn to doing actual relationship, coaching. So it's kind of something I've been studying for a while now. And then to come into a new relationship, and albeit, a short-term one, I was like, fuck, like my stuff that's showing up now, I couldn't have read in a textbook. You know what I mean? Like, I've learned a lot about relationships, but when she's polarizing this shit to me, I'm like, fuck, I couldn't have learned this in a textbook. So I think, if you can frame it up as, which I think every bloke should do, and females, is if you can frame it up from a place of growth, is your biggest triggers are going to be your biggest teachers, you know, and your biggest triggers are going to come from your relationship because they're so close to you, your kids, and your own business. All your shit's going to show up there. And if you can just reframe it from a place of gratitude, which when you're in the fucking thick of it and they're pissing you off, isn't that easy? But there's some really good lessons in that. So, you know, my lessons have been endless. And even in the most recent relationship where I was really aware of my stuff, it now, you know, I've got, you know, a period of time where I'm riding solo where I'll just kind of lean into some of that stuff that was shown up, you know, some stuff around self-worth, you know, bits and pieces that she's just highlighted for me. And I can't get angry. Like that's very much a victim mentality. You know, I've definitely had my little dummy spits in my moments, but at the end of the day, she like showed me what I needed to see. And gives me a good opportunity to kind of lean into it and work with it. So it's more, I think, about how you frame up the stuff that comes up in relationships as to whether you see it as a, you know, a positive or a negative.
They're always work, aren't they? They're always work. I've even had my ex-girlfriend on here. I interviewed my ex-girlfriend. Well, one of them anyway. Relationships is one of those things for myself. I have struggled with in the past. I feel like the next one I won't nail it, but it'll be a lot better. I didn't have the tools that I have now. And I've brought my ex-girlfriend on here and we broke down all the little shitty things that I was doing and all the habits. And I was like, it was funny. I had so many people that are like, yo, I was going to get both my ex-girlfriends on here at the same time. And I had one of my girl mates, she's like, yo, maybe don't do that. Cause they'll meet up and they'll gang up on you. I was like, you know what? 2 women in a room with me that are comfortable with me know me is probably not a good idea. But it's like, even with the relationship things, it's important to, for me, it's been a real learning curve about like learning from my past relationships as well, like you just spoke. And it's, that's where all the lessons, like I got so many lessons out of my past relationships. And so people jump into another relationship and they don't even learn from the last one. I'm like, you didn't get the lessons that you're teaching that got taught in the last one. And they jump into another one and another one. I'm like, stop.
Dude. Yeah. Like I'd be doing a disservice to the next chick if I was to jump in now because I haven't integrated the lessons and the learnings that came from that last relationship. And it takes a bit of time. Sometimes you need that space to process your stuff. And ideally you want to do it, you know, you want a partner who can support you in processing that shit in a relationship. And, you know, if you're riding solo, it's a really good time just to kind of take on board everything that you've learned, you know, because at the end of the day, you can pretend to, like, you can try and hide. Chicks are intuitive. They're fucking clever human beings. Like, your shit's going to show up in the next relationship. You know, you can hide it for that honeymoon period, you know, where you're wearing your bow tie. And as soon as the bow tie comes off and you put the board shorts on and you show your true self, shit's going to show up. So just fucking do the work.
Just do the work and just show up as you. Hey, I'm like, man,
yeah,
it's exhausting. I see people like trying to show up like in a different way. I'm like, oh, that looks exhausting. I'm like, I used to do that. I want to, momentum. How'd you come up with the name there?
Mate, I actually came up with the name a few days after I did some psychedelics. So
I like this story.
I did ayahuasca. Yeah. So I did ayahuasca in Australia, which is, but it just came to me like a few days after. And, you know, the thing with kind of your creative juices, it's often when you're just not doing much, you're not in do mode. It's kind of when you're in being mode that it all flows to you. So, you know, one of the big things for us as humans is we don't like feeling stuck. And, you know, to build momentum and keep moving forward is a really important thing. So, yeah, it just came in a moment. And, you know, the 2 other boys that I'm business partners with were stoked that it just like, you know, it just came and it fit so nicely. So yeah, that's how it kind of came to me.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I know where you're talking about there. I've dabbled in quite a few plant medicines, and it's like when the creative juices are flowing and you come out and in your processing mode and everything's going, you're like, the ideas are good and like like you just had this experience and everything. Like you just like your whole brain just got opened up, and yeah, it's a creative moment, and really good for you to capture that as well and take that out of that, because it's quite. I feel like it's easy sometimes to miss things. When you come out of that space, if you're trying to process and like some people just try to jump out of something like that and straight back into a normal lifestyle. And it's like, yo, I'm like, just sit, chill.
Yeah. I think depending what you do it, if you do it in Australia, which, as we've mentioned is illegal depending what medicine you do, but you probably want, 1 to 2 days after just to kind of chill and really sit in all of it. If you're trying to go straight back into work mode. And even when I did a thing called Vipassana, which is a 10-day silent meditation retreat, like, fuck, mate, those two, to be honest, the Vipassana was even better in terms of finding the creative juice. Like the ideas that came to me in that 10 days was phenomenal. And I'm trying to do it again this year, but obviously with COVID,
Can you break that down for us quickly? What was it? A silent?
Yeah. So it's a silent meditation retreat. So you go away for 10 days, meditate for 13 hours a day, can't make eye contact with anyone, no phones, no nothing. And what I actually did, which they don't allow, but I actually took my journaling because the fucking ideas were just coming, like pouring out of me. And then some bloke told me I journaled in my room, and some bloke told on me I think on day 8, which is a bit of a cheap shot, but is what it is. But I just made the clarity in all of that. And obviously, if you're meditating 13 hours a day in terms of what it does for your nervous system and your health is phenomenal. I lost 5 kilos in that 10 days, and I definitely wasn't going there for weight loss. But I remember saying to a few people, I was like, this weight feels different. It feels kind of like, stress and inflammation weight. It doesn't feel like body fat weight. And it just dropped off me. So mate, yeah, phenomenal. And to be honest, if you look at Bruce Lipton's work, the biology of belief, he talks about, I think it's like 90% of all death and disease related, problems is stress related. So if you can take yourself away for 10 days a year and just let that stress just fall off your body by doing, Vipassana, then it's a no-brainer in terms of adding longevity and well-being to your life.
It's so important to that stress relief side as well, especially for males. We put so much pressure on ourselves, and I just listening to this right now, I'm going to go do a float tank after this.
Dude, so good. Yeah,
it's one of my things. I love it. I'm like, I haven't done one in a while, but I had to do a few in a row about 2 weeks ago because I hit a solid wall. I was at my computer. I was like trying to work. I was doing coffee, and I was like, oh, I'm like, I burnt out. I was like, you idiot, you let yourself get to this stage. And, I went and did, one, and I was like, that's not even enough. I just had to go back and slowly, like you said, and just drop all that weight. And it took me a few days of going repetitively doing that and massages, etc. I was like, you know what? That work there is so important. Being able to understand where your body is and functioning, your mind and the whole flow of things is something I'm really passionate about, that side as well. And even as we live in a busy town, not everyone has access to a full 10-day retreat, which is, I'm listening to that now. I'm like, that's me. Me. But I'm like, being able to go access things like float tanks, your breath work and meditation. People ask me oh, what can I do? I'm like, nothing. Just sit there and do nothing is sometimes all you need. Just chill out, relax. Your body's probably under so much stress, and it's probably not eating right. You're not sleeping right. And it's like, I just like to strip it back to basics. Hey, most of the things that are in our way are just basic things that are out here around us. We put all the pressures on ourselves.
Mate, 100%. Definitely. Yeah, completely agree.
It's crazy. Hey, it's like when you have a journey or you have something like ayahuasca or mushrooms, and it strips back all the bullshit, all the things. And it's like, what's important? And I always do this when I transition. I've had a few transitions, out of life and out of businesses and stuff like that. And before I step into another, I guess, skin and I peel out into another section, I always, I'll drop in somewhere, as I call it. I'll do like a mushroom ceremony or ayahuasca or something, because what happens is it takes all my ego away, all of the mission, all the purpose driven stuff, and I get the answers of what's important, what's sitting there. And yeah, if it's on my heart, if it shows up in there, it's on my heart and it's true, I'm like, okay, it's so good. I'm not just getting clouded by what's around. It's such, that kind of stuff's really important for me, and that's where I get a lot of my answers from as well.
Mate, 100%. I had a breathwork session, a really powerful one, I think 2 weeks ago, and the same thing. You know, I even wrote it down after. It was like, it just strips the shit away. I remember writing something like, you're not your ego, you're not your identity, you know, like, what are you away from all, you're not your materialistic stuff, you're not the shiny, like, what are you away from all that? And, you know, it's the breath work, it's the meditations, it's the, you know, the plant medicine that really helps you just strip the shit away, you know. And I find it really interesting when people say, oh, just be yourself. It's like, I agree. And you've been conditioned for just about your whole life to be someone other than yourself. So in terms of really peeling that back, fuck mate, you got to go to the end of the earth to get back to your truest, most authentic, unconditioned, unprogrammed self. Like, that's a process.
Yeah, there's a lot of work there, brother.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work there. I want to I got a couple questions to ask you. If you had one wish today, like anything in the world, like I got a magic wand here, I can give you one wish to change anything, what would it be?
Good question. Great question. I do find myself naturally going to, like, everything I've been through has created who I am, and the gratitude that comes with that, albeit a lot of painfulness as well. But I think it would be the desire I had to build an identity. Do you know what I mean? Like, for my whole 20s, I built layers upon layers upon layers. Now I'm, you know, in my 30s, I'm taking all the layers back. So I think, to be honest, my wish would be that I didn't build layers on top of layers, and I just kept, you know, as close to my authentic, truest being as I could have been, and as I am. That's probably where I'd go.
Man, I love that. I love that. And then the last question I want to ask you is, what's some words of wisdom? You're giving someone some advice out there, a man or a woman, whoever it may be. If there's something that you wanted to leave them with, what would it be? What does that look like?
It'd be master yourself. And that's a process. But I think for a lot of people, there's very much a projection and looking outwards, and very little introspection of looking inwards. And your world out there is reflective of your inside world. And it's really hard for people to join the dots sometimes. But if you're having shit relationships, responsibilities on you. If your money's shit, responsibilities on you. If your kids hate you, responsibilities on you. Like, you need to dig to the end of the earth to find out what that is. And when you do, you'll see the outside world transform.
I love that, brother. Well, guess what, bro? That's going to be the end of our podcast, because I know there's going to be more on here, and I want to hear about this journey as we keep going and keep growing. But brother, thank you very much. I appreciate your time today. And yeah, just big kudos, man. I just listening to what you've got to say there, and like where you see things going. Right behind you, bro. I want to be there to help you, support you through those journeys as well.
And likewise, mate, I'm big on, you know, which I was kind of alluding to before, collaboration instead of competition. You know, like, we're on a similar page, which is so nice to connect with people like that. And, you know, there's so many opportunities out there from a collaboration point of view, as opposed to thinking it's competition. So any way that we can help and support you guys as well, we're open arms.
Yeah, likewise, brother. Appreciate it. That's our show, people. If you don't know, now you know. Peace and love.